Welcome back to the Bears Talk Podcast. I'm back with another episode, another beautiful night of playoff basketball. Only one game on tonight. It's kind of sad because once the games start going down and down with the amount of games being played on each night, you see that the playoffs is progressing and we're starting to get to the end of the NBA season. But this has been a phenomenal playoff so far. In this episode, we'll talk about Detroit Cavs Game 5. We'll talk about Game 5, Minnesota, San Antonio as well. Preview some Game 6s and what I'm looking for in those games as well. And then we'll talk about the Lakers who just got eliminated, and we'll talk about the Knicks and OKC who look like they're on a collision course for the finals against each other right now with how both teams are playing. But let's get into Cavs Detroit Game 5. Phenomenal game through and through. I was a little bit worried because the Pistons went on a little bit of a run there in that second quarter to where I'm like, the Cavs, are they going to be able to fight back? And they did, forced overtime. James Harden in this game, elite, 30 points. Just his ability to keep them in the game with him and Max Strus, the ability to keep things close. And every time Detroit would go on a little 5-6-0 run, they would answer the call. James Harden would answer the call with a big bucket or a big pass that led to a bucket, or Max Strus would hit a big time shot or get a timely rebound. He was great with those tonight. Just being able to control some possessions, give the Cavs second, third opportunities against a stingy Detroit Pistons defense, you're going to have to luck into some of those things and get second, third opportunities. But this has been such an insane, fun series to watch just because it's like both teams are struggling with the same exact thing. It's like you're looking at the Cavs throw a bunch of turnovers in the first half, and then you're like, the Pistons will kind of match that and throw a bunch of dumb turnovers as well in the same game in the same kind of fashion. And then it's like, the Detroit Pistons, multiple times in this game, they're getting second, third, fourth opportunities in one possession. And then I'm looking at Max Strus create second, third, fourth opportunities for their team as well. So it's like a battle of two teams that are kind of playing and taking advantage of the same things on the basketball court. And I think it's super fun and interesting to watch because this Detroit Pistons team, like, they're young, but they don't really play like this young upstart team. Like, they don't really play like they've never been here before, even though they are a young team. Like, they are playing like they are experienced. I think that's a great thing to have with guys like Tobias Harris on the team. He is such a vet in this league, and having JB Bickerstaff in this young team. Yeah, they went to the playoffs last year, but to be a one seed with higher expectations in the second round against a team that a lot of people would probably say is more talented than you, to be in a series right now with them is very good for the Detroit Pistons. But to kind of like look into this game, I don't really have a whole lot of notes, just kind of just watched it and enjoyed the entirety of the game. Evan Mobley had a great stretch in that third quarter, like hit the three and then had the dunk. Like, man, Evan Mobley, when he plays aggressive and assertive on the offensive side of the ball, it unlocks this team. Like, him and Allen were really, really good tonight. Looking at Donovan Mitchell, yes, didn't have the greatest start to the game. He didn't even like really have any buckets in the second half till late. Ended up getting it going late, which is something they desperately needed to do to close that game. The only thing that questions me about Kenny Atkinson's rotation is just like in a series like this, when you're kind of struggling to find bodies to throw consistently at Cade Cunningham, like you have somebody like Keon Ellis who is an above average. I would say Keon Ellis is a really good defender, and him not getting any burn in this series kind of really I don't know, I'm not the coach, but kind of like, what are we doing here? I feel like Keon Ellis, if any series, this would be the one for him to play. And I'm going to say it, if they advance and go to play the Knicks in the conference finals, I'm like, another tough ball dominant guard assignment in Jalen Brunson. I would like to see Keon Ellis get a little bit more burn because I think Sam Merrill will get matchup hunted in that series like he has been in this series with Cade Cunningham. And like, I just think those are two similar teams in terms of Cade Cunningham, Jalen Brunson. I think Keon Ellis would be a good guy to throw out both of those guys, but he's not even in the rotation. That's kind of my 2 cents on that. I think it's very interesting and a little bit weird because he's another guy they traded for with Dennis Schroeder at the deadline. I mean, I thought he would be playing a bigger impact in this playoff run. But either way, Cavs up 3-2. They get their first road win of the playoffs, which is huge. Kind of gets that monkey off their back in a way to like everybody's going to be saying they haven't won a playoff game on the road. What happens when they're not favored? They steal one in Detroit. And I knew it was a matter of time for Cleveland to get one on the road. Now it's time for the Pistons. Can they get one on the road and bring this back to Detroit for a Game 7? Game 6 is going to be, I believe, on Friday. So a pivotal Game 6 Friday. Like, this is going to be an insane series to look at. Like, God, this has been such an interesting series to watch. It's been so fun. Evan Mobley was great tonight. Jared Allen was great tonight. Harden was elite tonight. This is like this is like one of the things where I'm looking at the Garland and James Harden trade is like against this Detroit Pistons team with like the defense and the physicality that they play with. James Harden, I know he's had his ups and downs this series and sometimes in this playoffs, but like this game from James Harden, I don't think Darius Garland's giving you that. We always look at James Harden when he's pretty much ever since post Houston is like, oh, James Harden gets to the team, he can unlock this player and unlock that player because he's such a great playmaker. These are the games that remind you that James Harden used to lead the league in scoring every year. Like, this is the game that reminds you that James Harden's an MVP caliber player, or used to be. And he can still have moments where he taps into that. And I think this is just a huge, like, kind of like not like, this is why we made the Darius Garland trade, like solidifying that this is exactly why we made the Darius Garland trade. But that's how I was viewing it a little bit. And it's like James Harden, Darius Garland doesn't give you that game that James Harden did tonight, where Donovan Mitchell starts out slow. The Cavs start out down pretty much the entire first half, and it's kind of a back and forth all second half. James Harden was answering the call consistently, had the 3-ball going. He went 3 for 10 from 3, but those threes that he did hit were timely ones. 11 for 14 from the free throw line. Had 6 turnovers, but in this series, I can't even really dive in too deep to turnovers because both teams are turning the ball over a ton. I think Kate Cunningham had a bad one against Max Strus late in that game as well, just like not paying attention, being lazy with the ball, like allowing Max Strus to come up behind him, strip him of the ball. Somebody has to also say something to him in there. But now we can get to the Pistons side of things. Like, Paul Reed's been elite. Like, Paul Reed, 17 minutes, 10 points, 8 boards. Like, he's outplaying Jalen Duren by far. Like, and I'm not going to be surprised if next game in game 6 in a pivotal winner go home game for them, it's like, why would we not ride the hot hand in Paul Reed? You know what I mean? Why would Jalen Duren's obviously still going to play, but it's like down the stretch, Jalen Duren doesn't have the offensive touch around the rim that Paul Reed does. Paul Reed's been a great rebounder in his minutes played as well, so I expect Paul Reed to get a ton more run. Next game, Dennis Jenkins was phenomenal, had a hot start tonight, which had me a little bit worried for Cleveland. I'm just like, man, Detroit gets out to this hot start, could get ugly quick with how it was trending and how they started that game, but Cleveland weathered the storm, able to get back in it. Now I'm looking at Cade Cunningham, elite, 39 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists, like 2 steals, like had 6 turnovers to match James Harden's. His turnovers are just like head scratchers to me because he had one where he went and drove left into a crowd and like got up in the air, like tried to make a pass out of it, turnover. Like, he just makes a couple like bonehead turnovers, like the one where Max Strus comes up behind him late in that game to give the Cavs another possession after they just hit a big time 3, then Donovan Mitchell gets the lay in. Like, those are just questionable turnovers that really swung the game for me. But I wanted to really talk about Asar Thompson. He's in an elite club defensively, where, in my opinion, he's right up there with, obviously, Victor Wembanyama has a elite all-time level impact on the defensive end. I think Scotty Barnes is a phenomenal defender as well, but Asar Thompson's also in the conversation of if you want to talk about the best perimeter on-ball defenders in the sport, and he does it on all facets. Like, he's a great rim protector. He closes possessions with his rebounding. He can guard all the small, quick guards. He can guard all the bigger forwards and all the bigger guards, like, that are above 6'5", like that want to, like, any way you want to play as an offensive player, Asar Thompson can sit and Asar Thompson can guard. Like, man, like, I know the Houston Rockets had their down year this year, and they have a lot of question marks about their young core and Kevin Durant, all that. But man, Asar Thompson and Amen Thompson, I feel like got drafted into perfect situations, in my opinion. Still going forward with like the Rockets and their question marks, but like Asar Thompson got drafted into the perfect situation. If he can just develop some sort of jump shot, man, he's going to be an all-NBA kind of guy because he already fills up the stat sheet with everything. 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, 3 blocks. Had an insane block late in this game too. Like, man, I'm glad this game went to OT. I know they could have called the foul on the push off the turnover that he did get, but they waved it off. We went to OT. Me not being a fan of either one of these teams, I'm just glad I'm getting overtime basketball in the playoffs, so I didn't really think too much of it. But game 6, Detroit got going to Cleveland, tie this thing up, go back home to Detroit, reclaim home court advantage again. But looking at Cleveland at home, this got to be the closeout. To get to the monkey off your back, get to the conference finals for Donovan Mitchell, I expect him to have a big game in game 6 to close this series out. And looking at us pivoting now to Wolves Spurs in game 5 as well. Spurs up 3-2. The Spurs are looking scary. When I'm looking at OKC and how they're playing. I'm looking at the Spurs and how they're able to play through stretches against Minnesota. And then I'm looking at how the Knicks are playing. Like, man, oh man, we're in store for a great conference finals. Either way, I just think Minnesota right now is a little too banged up. You can see, at least I can see, them missing Dante DiVincenzo in this series a ton, because when you're going up against a bunch of different guards that can handle the ball and get downhill and play aggressive, Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, Dylan Harper, who's been phenomenal as a rookie. Like, looking at this and what they have, like, they're missing that other on-ball defender like a Dante DiVincenzo who can also hit shots, space, handle the ball himself. So I think that's, in this series, is what they're missing a ton. I can see Ayo great yesterday, phenomenal. Like, he's been like one of the most like impactful deadline acquisitions we've seen in some time. And I can see the same thing for Dennis Schroeder, because there are times where like Dennis Schroeder is making impactful winning plays on the basketball court. And I think those two, and I wish Keon Ellis was, I could say that as well about Keon Ellis, but he's just not touching the floor right now. But those deadline acquisitions, and I can even say another one in Jared McCain. Like, it doesn't blow my mind that the teams that are in this position that they are in now made big time moves at the deadline. Maybe not, I can't say big time moves, but winning moves at the deadline, with OKC getting Jared McCain for what they did, which is basically nothing. And now you see Daryl Morey fired for that exact trade, right? Jared McCain, I said it in a group chat that we have with all of our friends that we talk NBA in. I said Jared McCain is going to help win the OKC Thunder a playoff game during their run. Last night was that game where Jared McCain is just lights out from three. He has just the green light from three, catch and shoot. Like, he's deadly from that range. Somebody Philadelphia could have desperately used, but that's a conversation for a different day. But like, going into that, you have Jared McCain with the Thunder picked up at the deadline. Ayo Dosunmu picked up at the deadline for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis, I'll throw both of them in there, picked up by the Cavs at the deadline. So like, looking at this, even for the Knicks, Jose Alvarado picked up at the deadline. Like, looking at what they have this season and all the teams that are competing for this finals, like, all of them have made some kind of deadline addition to the team, outside of like Detroit, who did the Kevin Huerter, Jaden Ivey trade, and then the Spurs really kind of stayed pat. They didn't have to make any moves. But getting more into this game before I stop rambling on about kind of post-deadline stuff, Anthony Edwards, he's like trying to work with all the attention that's on him. And Julius Randle has not been good at being a second option and taking the pressure off Anthony Edwards. He's getting flash doubled every single time he catches the ball. A lot of times he is making the really good decision and splits the double, or gets to the basket, or splits the double, steps in between, ends up getting a really good open look for his teammate. And this is a game where, like, you could have looked and said Minnesota's dead in the water multiple times throughout this game. They kept clawing back and clawing back and clawing back in this game. I want to say it was tied up 61s at one point, and then the Spurs avalanche just goes on a run again. Vic, coming off the ejection in that game, 27, 17, 5, 3 blocks, like, just elite numbers from Vic. He was locked in all night. And this is more so, I think the reason that they're struggling so much is obviously because of Victor Wembanyama. But talking about Minnesota's offense, one, yes, you're playing Wemby, and when he's on the court, he makes life hell on you getting to the basket. Julius Randle has not been good since game one, really. He had 17 and 10 tonight, but there's just some shot attempts where he's like trying to draw the foul, has a smaller on him. I feel like he has, like, in the back of his head, every time he goes to the rim, he's worried about Victor Wembanyama, and that's just a praise to Victor Wembanyama and his defensive ability. But Jaden McDaniels has been super up and down. He's been dealing with constant foul troubles. I think he picks up so many just dumb fouls, where it's not even like offensive player made a good move, he was just trying to play good defense. It's just like dumb frustration fouls, I feel like, that I see Jaden McDaniels pick up at times. Rudy Gobert, it's kind of tough because, like, yeah, you want to have him out there when Vic's on the floor, but then it's like you want to get Vic away from the basket, which has led to Naz Reid playing a lot more. And, like, Naz Reid's been fine in this series as well. Terrence Shannon Jr. didn't have his best game, 2 points over 5 from the field. Like, Naz Reid didn't have his best game either, minus 21 in this one. But, like, looking at what they have, Minnesota, you can never count Minnesota out. I feel like they played their best when their back is against the wall. But they, I think, need to go a little bit further into this rotation, possibly a little bit, just to get some more defensive pressure on some of these guards like De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, and Dylan Harper, who's been a matchup nightmare. I feel like anytime he gets a bucket, it's always on like a Mike Conley. There's just somebody who's just smaller than him. But, like, they have size all over the floor for San Antonio, athleticism all over the floor, shot creation all over the floor. And then they have snipers in Vassell and Champagnie that I feel like are always has the ball in their hands late, making it play late in the shot clock. So like if I'm Minnesota, I'm experimenting with a little bit more like Jalen Clark minutes throughout the game, just to add some, because I feel like Jalen Clark, yeah, he's not the offensive player that you would want out there in the playoffs at this current time, but you need a little bit more defense on the floor if I'm Minnesota. It's a little bit more ball pressure, because I feel like that's where San Antonio's done in the games that they've won. They've increased the ball pressure on Minnesota, and they've sped them up a ton. So I'm looking at maybe Jalen Clark can maybe do a little bit of that and show some elite ball pressure full court on somebody like De'Aaron Fox, Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle. But I do feel like this series is going back to San Antonio for a game 7. I think the Spurs are going to end up closing it out possibly in 7, just because I think the Wolves are desperately missing somebody like Dante DiVincenzo now for sure. But I just think the Spurs are the more healthy team right now, and I think with Vic and the way he's playing, and now Fox has come along to the party, like Stephon Castle, elite, 17 points, 8 for 11. He's another one that's just like, I feel like, man, every time he gets a foul call, it's like, man, Stephon Castle already got 4 fouls. Want to get that in check before you go play a team like Oklahoma City for sure and calm down on those fouls. But I do think the Spurs in the series, it will go 7. I think the Spurs will close it out in 7. With the way it's looking right now, I just lean San Antonio in the series, but I do think Minnesota finds a way to get it back to San Antonio. Now getting into the other two teams, let's talk about OKC and the Knicks, the two teams that are sitting at home watching these battles in both conferences unfold. Let's talk about the Knicks first. The Knicks are hitting their stride at the right time. Me and Cole talked about it because me and Cole also both predicted the Knicks to get to the finals at the start of the year. We were also thinking Mike Brown's going to, just off Mike Brown's time in Sacramento, like using kind of Brunson, Cat, like Fox and Sabonis in a lot of ways. But you have two better players than those two that I just said. Cat's ability to space the floor, maybe do a little bit more offensively than Sabonis with the ball in his hands. And you have Jalen Brunson, who's just as good of a bucket getter, if not better than De'Aaron Fox. Two different kinds of guards there. But you know what I'm saying? Like, we also thought going into the year that the Knicks offense was going to be unlocked. It's like the cat got out of the bag in the playoffs because it's a whole 180 from this team. Like, ever since they lost that game, what was a game, or when it was 2-2, went to New York and they blew the Hawks out and they just took care of business. Like, they've been lights out ever since. Karl-Anthony Towns has looked like this insane, like weird, like Jokic hub offensively, to where he's just creating offense, getting everybody else involved. His assist numbers have been insane these playoffs. Jalen Brunson just being Jalen Brunson, closing games, closing possessions, ISO buckets, however you need it. Jalen Brunson's going to provide it for you. Mikal Bridges has found his offense. I know you're dealing with the OG Anunoby injury, but since you took care of business, you're off and get to hopefully watch, possibly as this series goes into a game 6, hopefully gets into a game 7, so you get even more time off, and then possibly get an OG Anunoby back. You're playing already a tired, worn out team that just came off a 7-game series, and both of these teams coming off 2 7-game series in their own right. So if it goes 7, that's already a ton of tax, and New York's been sitting at home a lot of this time. And I do think like there is some rust to knock off and everything else like that, but I'd rather deal with rust and tiredness from 2 game 7 series. Like, so I'm looking at the Knicks. They are still my favorites to go to the finals. I just think, I know Detroit's had their number in the regular season, but I think coming off 2 game 7s with how New York's playing and how New York has really found their identity as a team, I think New York is going to be a very tough team to beat, and I think they're going to go to the finals. Going into OKC, the other dominant team, they took care of the Lakers. AJ Mitchell's been phenomenal, been lights out. Jared McCain, yeah, Daryl Morey, what are we doing there? Like, obviously, Jared McCain's a really good player. He showed you that when he was with Philadelphia last year, but decided to trade him away. SGA really hasn't had his most dominant playoff run, but he was great in the closeout where you needed him most. Like, everybody else was eating, so it's like you're fine with SGA not having these explosive scoring nights because AJ Mitchell's doing that and picking up the slack. Chet Holmgren's had a game in this series where offensively he was unstoppable in those games in OKC, and it's just like, yeah, I'm not worried about SGA struggling against a Lakers team that's doubling him every possession, throwing multiple bodies at him throughout the course of the game. Has Marcus Smart, who, yes, Marcus Smart isn't deep point Marcus Smart, but is still a good veteran defender and can make things tough on SGA. And with them, the one thing I'll say about the Lakers, for a team that's not really defensively tooled, they went through stretches where they were playing some really high-level defense, and it shows just how good of a coach J.J. Redick is. But this is a series where you're missing Luka Doncic. Going into the series, I even thought even if Luka Doncic played, it was OKC series, and it was never really the Lakers, in my opinion. But they get done with the sweep, and the Knicks and OKC Thunder are sitting at home watching these two battles. They're probably both sinking. We hope both of these series go 7, get a little bit more rest off. These teams are going to come to the conference finals tired, and I do think the finals will be OKC and the Knicks. But the Spurs are matching up really well with OKC with the guards that they have, the way Dylan Harper's playing, the defense that they can provide with Vic and Stephon Castle. Like in a world where like they're throwing 2 bodies at SGA, like the Spurs are probably a more tough matchup than the Wolves for OKC right now, with kind of the Wolves injuries and they're banged up right now. But the Wolves, I just can never count out the Wolves just because of their makeup over the past couple seasons. They've been able to prove me wrong a couple times in the past where it seems like the Wolves are dead in the water, like in that game 7 against Denver on the road, dead in the water, and they just come back and win. So like I can never count out the Wolves and Anthony Edwards, and I'm not going to do that here now. But I do think both series on both conferences sides go 7. But man, we are in store for an all-time great conference finals, in my opinion. Whoever comes out of the East, I think Cavs right now, because I think Cavs are kind of finding their identity as well, just like the Knicks are. And I think those two teams and how they match up could be a really, really good series. So I'm hoping for Cavs-Knicks, just unbiased, just watching it. I think Cavs-Knicks would give us the best series on the East, and I think the Spurs OKC would give us the best series on the West. But I'm open to anything for good basketball, good playoff basketball. We got a great OT game tonight. 2 elite-level Game 6s, winner-go-home games in the second round. That's all we can ask for as basketball fans. But that is all I have for this episode of the Barrel Talk Podcast. Hope you tune in to future episodes.